do. It's season 2, it's in 30 at 30. Season 2. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 30 at 8:30. Come on in the room, folks. Come on in the room. How you doing? Hey, Sarah. On time. Always on time and ready to go. Do you set an alarm and just boom, there you are. Always. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Terry. Hey, Bailey. What's going on, people? 30 at 8:30. Welcome, 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 welcome. Come on in the room. When you come on in the room, hit share. So happy to see you. Aw, Wednesdays. Hi, Terry. Mwah. Jody, what's going on? What's up, yeah, Philly? What's going on? How are you? Thanks so much. I know you have tons of work to do today. Thanks for signing in. So we're just going to get Kendra on the line, and we are going to get going. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to 30 at 8:30. Kendra! There she is! What's going on? How are you?
Hello.
I'm sorry. I just think the hair is working. It looks fabulous. It's just yes. What's up, Javon? How you doing?
Good.
What's going on? Hey, Uncle Mike, how's it going? What's it going? Javon gave you fire signs. I mean, I think it could be because it's just the guest. It could be the hair. It's working.
I don't know. That's okay.
It's the vacation that you had that was much needed. Much needed.
It was needed, but I can't tell that I had one, okay? Not this week, anyway.
I feel you. What's up, Alicia? How are you? Welcome, everyone. Welcome to 30 at 8:30. Come on in the room. When you come on in the room, hit share. I'm so excited. I'm always excited for our guest, and I'm, again, super excited for tonight's guest. Not only because she's just freaking awesome and she's doing the thing in Philadelphia, holding it down for our Black youth, but she actually is a former student of mine, and I'm gonna make you just blush a little bit and embarrass you, but I couldn't be prouder.
Oh.
I couldn't be prouder.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I couldn't be prouder. All right, you guys, folks. 30 at 8:30. Welcome to 30 at 8:30, a space where every week we just hold the space for 30 minutes every Wednesday night at 8:30 to uplift, to have candid conversations to discuss the impact of COVID-19 and structural inequities that are inherently structurally violent that impact some of our most vulnerable. 3830 is brought to you by the Center for Research and Innovation for Black Survivors of Homicide Victims, aka the CRIB. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 3830. Tonight, I forgot my music. Kendra, I went through my...
What music you got today?
Let me see what you got. See. Okay, wait, here we go. Let's see. I don't know the rights to this music, but I just like the...
I like it.
It's gotta get...
I like it.
It takes a while. And here goes this. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But you gotta wait for the chorus. Wait. Here he goes. Okay, wait, ready, wait for it.
I like it.
Okay. That's my new thing this season, I guess, is to bring in favorite music.
Yes, we have to.
Gotta keep it light. Gotta keep the joy going. All right. Let me stop playing and get down. Because Kendra, I have questions. I have lots of questions. And you know,
lay them on me.
We've been chatting offline, so I'm so excited to just bring this to the Crip community.
Yeah.
But first, let me start with official business and read your bio. I mean, girlfriend, how long the bio is? I mean, it's okay, but I'm a... Oh, okay. Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to welcome to the Crib community, to welcome to 3830 tonight, Kendra Vandewater. Kendra Vandewater lives with the belief that challenging oppressive systems creates sustainable change. Her life's work is dedicated to improving the quality of life for people on all levels, starting with communities and ensuring that policies are representative of the people they impact. As a licensed social worker, Kendra's expertise includes local, state, and national work on improving conditions of confinement, collaborating with law enforcement to improve communities, policy and program implementation, reducing violence, with a particular focus on improving how Philly responds to homicides and provides services to city residents after violent tragedies. Kendra has worked extensively with police to change policies and practices to improve how people in Philadelphia are policed and interact with law enforcement. In response to existing youth organizations' inability to address community issues based on the needs of the individual, specifically teenagers. As a co-founder, Kendra created Youth Empowerment for Advancement Hangout, Yeah, Philly, a startup teen-led nonprofit focused on empowering teens in Philly who have witnessed or engaged in violence to achieve the lives they want, while simultaneously reducing youth and community violence. Yeah, Philly is a sustainable movement utilizing teen power to ultimately reduce neighborhood youth violence and implements programming specifically addressing the needs of teens according to them. Yeah, Philly focuses on a variety of services to improve the lives of teens in underserved and violent neighborhoods who are not connected or eligible for traditional programs due to being engaged in some form of violence. Through teen-led mediation and conflict resolution, improving the relationships between teens and police, community engagement, and case management, Yeah, Philly rocks. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Kendra Vandewater. Yeah! Woo-hoo!
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on board. I appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Of course.
So proud of you. All right, so we dive in.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I see some of our young people on here.
Hey, yay, Philly crew. What's up? Thank you so much for coming into the crib community, joining 3830. Oh my gosh, so good to see you out there, y'all. So good to see you. All right, so Kendra, real talk. What drew you to this work?
So my whole career trajectory is based on my experiences with the criminal justice system. So when I was a teenager, I was beat by Philadelphia police. I ended up in juvenile detention center for a short amount of time. And my experience in there was like, this is what's going on. This is what's happening to people who are my age. And so that whole experience, you know, when I went through that, the court system, I felt just unsupported all the way through. I didn't know what was happening. My mom didn't know what was happening. She didn't know what to do. And I just always felt like, you know, growing up, things could have been done that we didn't know if we had different types of support. So from there, it was a trajectory of, even regardless of what you're going through, whether you're in the system, whether you're in trouble, people need advocates and people need support, and they should still receive some type of service regardless of what they're going through. Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up here.
Wow. So Kendra, as long as I've known you, you never shared that with me. And so
really?
Never.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being so honest and forthcoming with your truth. But also thank you so much for boldly taking a leap to manifest your pain into such power. So thank you so much for that. Oh,
of course.
I'm so nice. Okay, sorry. All right. Question number 2. So Black youth, as you stated in your story, really, Black youth are among some of our most vulnerable populations, particularly as it pertains to how they are impacted by COVID-19. Let's start there for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So in your work with Black youth, can you tell us a bit about how they are being impacted by COVID-19 and also how are they coping with it?
Yeah, so I think even going back to the beginning of the pandemic when, I mean, there's still so much of the unknown, but I think everyone was pretty much like, what is happening? You know, schools just shut down. We stayed home. I think at first it was kind of like, oh, there's no school. I don't have to go. It's all good. And then time started passing on, and it's like, I have to stay in the house as a young person. You know, I have to wear a mask if I go outside. I can't see my friends. I don't want to be in the house all day. And so I think in the beginning, it was getting used to just being in the house all the time, which is a big thing that we deal with anyway on a normal day. Like people don't want to be in the house all day.
Yeah.
And so with the virus, you know, it's a lot of education. Also, a lot of people didn't believe it at first. A lot of young people didn't believe it. And so it's around, what do they see? Are they directly impacted? How are we, you know, educating them about the stuff that's going on? And how can we support them? So the ways that we try to help them cope is we try to provide a space regardless of, you know, you just want to talk, that's fine. And for us, I think our organization is different because we understand that always being in the house 24/7, understanding that we should be during a pandemic is still a privilege, right?
Yeah.
And so we created different things where they could still come out into the community and do some things. It was just in smaller groups. So we would do things like mental health hikes.
Nice.
I love the hike. So,
yeah,
you know.
I know you do. I know you hike every morning.
So we do hiking. We give out food every week. And even if it's just a few hours, it gets them out of the house and it gets them to be able to socialize. So I think they cope in different ways. And a big thing, especially, I'm sure everywhere, but in Philly is a basketball city. Young people play basketball all the time. So Philly was taking down the basketball rims around the city, and they were struggling with that. They were really trying to find places to play basketball. And so it was just, you know, how do we support them? And we understand that I mean, even now, it's hard, it's difficult. Things are easing up, but they try to cope in different ways around how do they still get to socialize? How do they still get to see people that they know? How do they still get to meet their needs in different ways and have an outlet?
So creating safe opportunities. Yeah, Philly's really creating safe opportunities for youth to still be able to socialize together. And also, I hear, also engage with community, giving back to community, which is so important as well, which I love that you all do. So in our work together, you and I have discussed the other pandemic, anti-Black racism, and how racism has always impacted Black people throughout our global community. How is the pandemic of anti-Black racism impacting Black youth, and how are they coping with that?
Yeah, so I think we're in a time now where people are seeing things they haven't seen before. And I think for young people, and we talk about it all the time, we provide a space about it. We've talked a lot about the stuff going on just even recently with the racism and with police brutality. And so the young people are seeing things that they haven't really seen before. And a big part of what we do too has been educating them on, you know, what's happened historically. Like in LA with Rodney King, you know, we had them watch that documentary. We talk about the history of police and things like that. And so they're seeing things differently because they're being exposed to more racism. And we talk about that too. And I think we're in the era of everyone saying Black Lives Matter, right? But we're teaching the young people to say, you know, they're saying Black Lives Matter, but what does that really mean? How can people show you that our lives really matter? And also, it's not just words, it's action. So I think they cope with it in a huge way of we talk about it, they see a lot of videos with the racism, and it's not good. It impacts them. And even though they want to see it, it still impacts them in a way where it makes them angry. Like we all get upset when we see videos and we talk about the racism, but I think it's also understanding what we can do about it. And so that's a big thing of a part of Yeah Philly. How can we utilize your action as a young person and help, push back against these things that are happening in your life in terms of anti-Black racism?
So Kendra, what I'm hearing is educate, enlighten about, what's going on currently and how that's there's an historical structural trajectory, right? So helping youth understand that. But also what I love about Yeah Philly is taking it a step beyond that and saying, okay, how do we then empower, engage youth in changing policy? So what are some things, if you can share with the crib community, what are some things that Yeah Philly is doing particularly around that issue?
So one of the recent things that we were working on, we did a curriculum with youth and police, and that was a lot about racism and police brutality. So we're working on, the mayor oversees the police department in terms of how they're trained, what's happening. We're working on things related to making crisis intervention training mandatory for all officers. It is not mandatory in Philadelphia. Out of 6,400 officers, there's about 2,000 officers trained in crisis intervention. So they reviewed cases. We talked about these cases, and they came up with, well, why is this happening? Or that seems like an easy thing that we can change, right? In terms of what's going on with police. We worked a lot on having access to the internet for specifically Black families. That's been a huge thing here in Philly about equitable access. We were a big part of that. We're still doing that work. But as of now, Comcast has opened and put more money to give more access to families. And we were a huge part of that. So we try to make sure that even though it's slow, we make sure that we're a part of these types of changes and a part of the bigger picture, because that's what's important.
Yes. I love it. And I love the fact that you are, merging or helping facilitate dialogue and relationships with groups of people that normally don't come together. We're talking about Black youth in particular and law enforcement, and doing that through, case analysis, but also bringing those two groups together. Love. So, Kendrick, Yeah Philly is doing so much, right? So much to meet the needs of Black youth, feeding the community, as you mentioned, advocating for policy changes, hosting community vigils. I was on last week, hosting community vigils for surviving family members of homicide victims so that they can collectively grieve. How are you specifically helping Black youth cope with the impact of sort of both pandemics, right? So they're sheltering in place, if you will. They have limited access. I mean, you're increasing that through policy to internet. Then there's this sort of constant chronic exposure to violence. How are you handling just the crescendo of both?
So I think the biggest thing for us is providing a space where young people are able to be themselves and be uncensored and process all of these things. The biggest thing in terms of feedback that we hear is that there's no place for them, or they're not listened to. Adults try to silence them when they have an opinion. So that has been monumental in all of these things. Like over, a couple months ago, we did a series we called Healing in the Hood, where we provided a virtual space to test and talk to young people about how do we support you in the aftermath of a shooting or violence, and what resources do you think already exist? How can we give you more resources? What's actually out there, and what do you want to see done? And it was a really, really good series. I mean, doing virtual things is hard. But they showed up, they had a real conversation, And it was just a place where, regardless of what you're talking about or saying, you are welcome to say it, and it's okay. Yeah. And you don't have to put on, another mask or another face. I don't have to tell you how to talk, how to dress, to be quiet, and those things. So I think for us, the biggest thing is providing a space specifically for them.
Providing a space for uncensored dialogue. And I would imagine that space, given the magnitude and the weight of the fact that even though we're in the middle of COVID-19, we're seeing significant upticks in gun violence, both fatal and non-fatal shootings, both here in Canada and in the US. I would imagine that space that you're providing allows for them to kind of voice their concerns, yeah?
Definitely. I mean, a lot of them have lost, even recently, they're losing friends and cousins, and just honoring them and giving people this space to talk about it, because oftentimes it happens and we're like, get over it, or it's okay, you're gonna be all right, keep your head up, and that's not what we can do. We have to have some type of release, and so that's the most important thing for them.
Release. Dr. Massaquoi was on for the first episode, and she talked about that. And she basically talked about what we're seeing is a normal reaction to something that is abnormal in terms of the violence. So
definitely,
what is needed as a release. Yeah, I hear you. So I want to kind of stick with that and really take a deeper dive relevant to Black youth have been at the forefront of organizing on and off social media in response to state-sanctioned police violence. In the US, their peaceful protests have often been met with demonizing remarks, often referring to Black youth as thugs, mobsters, gangsters, in addition to being met with additional state-sanctioned violence in the form of the National Guard. How is that affecting the mental health of Black youth?
That's been a lot. I mean, here, I know there were times where I took some of them. I know the other co-founder, James A., he took some of the young people. We were driving through the protests. We were driving through the uprisings and just sitting in the car and watching, because they never seen anything like it. And so it's stressful. We had the National Guard here for a while. We had people getting shot with rubber bullets. They tear gassed. I'm in West Philly. They tear gassed West Philly. And so the young people are seeing all of this, and the teens are seeing all of this. We processed all of that for a while. I know some of them had to deactivate their Instagram accounts for a little while, because you see all of it on Instagram. You're seeing videos of people being shot. You're seeing videos of the uprising, but also it's a period for us to educate them about, why this is happening, what's going on, and also ask them how they feel about it, and talk about, how can they be involved? And they want to be involved. And that's the great thing. I think we try to implement a lot of the civic and community engagement, because they have their thought process about what's going on. And if you want to be involved, that's great. And I think just them starting to think critically about the bigger picture is super important, because that's the stuff that they don't learn in school. So we try to do that, and helping them cope in the way they need to. Whatever they say they need, we try to do it.
Yeah, I remember us saying that social media often serves as it's a double-edged sword, right? It serves as they're exposed to, both in real time off social media, but on social media, they're exposed to violent pictures and images of Black bodies, right? Being brutally murdered, being brutally shot down. At the same time, Dr. Desmond Patton, who we had on last week, talked about social media also being used as a way for youth to gather together collectively, to grieve, to mobilize. So it's a tricky double-edged sword. But I think that what I love about Philly is that you've tapped into. We recognize all of these sort of elements, and the importance is holding a space for youth to have voice. And
even just sharing information. Young people they on Instagram all day. Okay. So whether it's a story or something, like, we have to utilize that space, and recognize when it's also harmful. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Kendra. I want to switch gears for a moment and focus on the work you do with youth specifically around empowerment. The election is the U.S. election is less than 50 days away. And many people are saying that the outcome of the election is hinging on the youth vote, in particular, the Black youth vote. How are youth at Philly feeling about the upcoming election?
So I think the big part of our conversations have been around why young people believe that the voting age should be lowered. So the average age of the people we serve is about 16. And so everyone who's 18 and older, they're all registered to vote, which is great. But we do a lot of education around just why elections are important. Yeah. Also, why just not the presidential elections are important. But a lot of the conversation is about, we got to get Donald Trump out of office. Mm-hmm. This man is a mess. Mm-hmm. But also recognizing how even the political parties are still harmful. And, what does that mean if you still don't like Joe Biden, but you got to vote for him? Or, what are you going to do about that? But I think young people specifically have been bringing up, I wish they would lower the voting age so I can vote, because they're interested in voting. And I think it's important.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's always this narrative that young people don't vote because they think that their vote doesn't count, so forth and so on. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up, that, actually they do want to be engaged. They already are engaged, and that they are watching, right?
Yeah.
They should be paid attention to.
Yes. And young people today are more engaged politically than ever before. And we don't ever really talk about that. But also, we're bringing up an entire generation of voters, and they know. They're like, Miss Kendra, when you running for office? I'm going to vote for you.
When are you running for office, Kendra?
I don't know.
Miss Kendra, when are you running for office? I think I have brought that up. I'm just saying.
People bring it up. I
support the young people.
I mean, we got to see. But also, like, we're doing things like helping them get on committees in the city and boards, and what does this look like, and why is this important, and all of that leads to our vote. So they're being educated in all of these things, and honestly, I don't think people like it very much. People don't like when young people have an opinion, or when they don't agree with everything you say. And so that empowerment piece is,
I love it.
Adults are going to tell you a whole lot of things that you may not agree with, and it's okay, but also you have the right to have your own opinion. And just because you're young, it does not mean that you don't know anything. So you should still share that information anyway.
Tell it. You heard it here first, people. I just want you to note I'm reading the comments, which I'm reading the comments. And when we talked about you running for office, you got votes from Toronto, Boston, from what I could see, Baltimore, and Sierra Leone. I just want to put that out there for you.
Look. Okay. I mean, maybe it's a thought. It's a thought.
Okay.
But it's scary. But we need better people in office. We got to vote these people out, and it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes, you do. I'm just saying, thought is the beginning of an idea for reality. But that's.
You're right.
Thought is the foundation for what considers reality. But okay, I digress. I gotta always have a teachable moment.
I know.
All right. So last crescendo question.
Mm-hmm.
When you reflect, and you and I have talked about both the successes and the challenges of, making your vision of Philly a reality. So when you reflect upon both your successes and challenges with meeting the insurmountable, it seems sometimes, needs of Black youth who are disproportionately impacted by structural violence, anti-Black racism, homicide, and gun violence, what should we be doing relevant to research, policy, and practice to help meet the needs of Black youth?
I think the biggest thing is that there is a huge disconnect between the people who are in leadership positions and making policies versus how they're making the policies and the way that they're supposed to be implemented on the ground. And it doesn't match. And I think people, they just need to be more in the community. You know, we lose sight of how knocking on doors and talking to people is probably the most impactful thing. And we often try to create all of these things and reinvent the wheel when you just need to go and ask people what they need. And I think we miss that. And it's too much. It honestly, it's not rocket science. And people need to get on the ground. And you know, people are always like, well, how do you get all these people to show up? Or how did you do this in such a short amount of time? And it's that we always try to label things and do all of these excess things when really we have to remember that people are people. We have to act like we care about people because that's missing, and people show up. And then when you genuinely care about someone and you try to assist them, and even if you cannot help them the way that they want, they will forever remember you, because too many people are just not caring about our people. And I think that is the biggest thing that we can do.
Show up and show out. You know, every single guest we've had on 3830 has said exactly what you said, Kendra. It's really not rocket science when we talk about meeting the needs of some of our most vulnerable in COVID-19, meeting the needs of some of our most vulnerable who were impacted by structural inequities before COVID-19. It is about being in service and being engaged with community, showing up consistently.
And being authentic. People see through all. You have to be genuine and you have to be authentic. Yes. It is so important, and that's the biggest thing you can do. And oftentimes I think we don't want to try things because we're afraid to say that it didn't work. So what? It's okay if it doesn't work. We can change how things are, be honest with people, and you're fine. And that's what we have to do.
Oh my gosh. Kendra, I'm so glad you came on. I'm because this is an important issue that I think is not being talked about in terms of the good things that you're doing, right? How they're being impacted by so many inequities, so much violence, but they're still able to rise. And be leaders, future leaders. And so I just thank you for the contributions and the personal, steadfast commitment that you've made to youth. And I'm so proud of the work that you're doing at Philly.
Thank you. And I appreciate you, my forever mentor. You're the bomb. And thank you for having me. This is wonderful. And even everything you've done at the crib, like it's amazing. And I'm happy to even know you, let alone be a part of the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Crib community. I mean, time just flies by. We are so many topics we could talk about, but
we done? That was fast.
Right? I had
felt like 10 minutes.
It really did, and they always complain we need 40 minutes, but it messes up the time. We can't put 8:40. I mean,
40 to 8:30.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. But you know, it keeps y'all coming back.
Yeah.
It keeps you guys coming back. Kendra, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And crib community. Until next week, as always.
And I will be tuning in next week too.
Awesome. From our crib to yours. Keep safe. Stay well. Good night.
Bye.